Hi, everyone. Welcome to Basic Binges, part of the Nom Talk network. On the show, we review popular shows that are out now while eating and drinking our favorite things. I am your host, Erric Ramirez, and right now, I'm not eating anything because I just went to Applebee's and scarfed a bunch of appetizers because I went during happy hour, so that was nice. But I am drinking a nice cold Truly because it is very, very hot out there. um, I want to introduce our guests for today on this journey that we are about to take. We have Erin, Jordyn, and Julie. Erin, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Erin. I'm not eating anything as well. I literally just had a Korean corn dog. So besides that, I'm just sticking with water. It's very hot and I need to stay hydrated. So passing the drinking because for me personally, I think drinking when it's really hot, it gives me a really bad headache. So I'm just going to stick with water today.
Bravo, bravo. Good choices. I have water too because
Mm.
hydration is important. Jordyn, go ahead and introduce yourself and your
Hello.
wonderful ears.
Just all the things. Yeah, I am definitely an elf today. Yeah, it's wonderful to see you all. I've seen one of you on one of my wonderful little hosting shows, and two of you. I'm so glad to meet you. I am currently enjoying a wonderful ice cold Mai Tai in my little Yeti, so it stays
Ooh.
like super
Nice.
cold, right? And I do have some water just on backup in my Legend of Zelda like glass cup thing because elves is the thing, right?
Can we see it?
And-
Oh, yes, we do have to see this.
yeah, absolutely. So my friend actually, for my birthday, my friend actually got me. It's like a whole pack, and this was from Breath of the Wild. And it
Cool.
was like a collector's thing, but yeah, it's like in a little glass.
It's
thing.
cute.
I know, I love it. It just doesn't keep things cold like my Yeti.
Yeah.
And then I'm enjoying some homemade street tacos. They're
Ooh.
carne asada tacos with some cheese and some like avocado oil buffalo sauce. So I'm so excited to do that.
Yum.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being here and sharing everything you're snacking and drinking on. And then finally, we have Julie. Julie, what are you eating and snacking on tonight?
Hello, I'm Julie. Yes, I am drinking some Tazo passion tea, caffeine free because I don't drink caffeine. But I was really excited to find out that I'm gonna pour it in a fancy glass because I'm fancy like that. um, I was excited to have it. They find that they have it in the big jugs. Anyway, and I am eating. This is like a plant-based hot pocket. I've never tried
Ooh.
them before, so
So
they had
good.
good reviews on Target.com. So
Yeah.
this one is
They're
the
so
broccoli potato cheddar one. So
Ooh.
I like so far. I just took a bite. It's pretty good. And then I've got some crackers and jalapeno hummus because crackers and hummus are my favorite. So
All that sounds delicious. I want to thank you guys all for being here.
Yeah.
Now, to get in what we're about to, today we are talking about Rings of Power episode 1 and 2. We're about to embark on an 8-week journey and talk about all this, and it's going to be wonderful. So before we get into the show and everything like that, I do want to find out what were your guys' thoughts before when you heard that this was coming out? What were your worries? What were your excitements? Everything that you want to let me know. Go ahead, Jordyn. Why don't you start? I
Sorry,
always
my
do
mouth
this
was
too. I always get the person who's eating.
So you know what's funny is when I heard that they were going to do this, right? And I don't know if you all remember this, but when they announced it, they did like it was like a wood sort. It was like the announcement thing was like wood, and then they poured like molten, like the rings were made with like molten metal.
Mhm.
And I didn't know this at the time, but it was actually shot in real life at a freaking like what do you call it when they like where they
Melting
make
factory.
like at a smelt it was actually and it was real, like this was not CGI. None of it was CGI. It was touched up. And the minute that it got announced, I creamed myself. I was like, I'm so excited for this because I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan. Like when I was in, let's see, when did Lord of the Rings come out? I was in high school, and middle school as well. And my best friend at the time was obsessed with Lord of the Rings. I think I saw Fellowship of the Ring 3 times in theaters. I saw The Two Towers probably 5 in theaters. And then Return of the King I saw I think like twice in theaters. So like, and then it took me a while to watch The Hobbit because I was like, why am I going to watch that? I graduated high school, like I'm past that. And then it came out like I think on like on like a streaming platform, and I watched all three, fell in love all over again with this thing. And I've read the novels, I have them, I have like the so when I heard this was coming out, I definitely was skeptical at first, but at the same time, I was super excited for this. And I will say I was not really that disappointed with, the product. So that's sort of, how my feelings were towards it.
Good, good. I'm right there with you and everything like that. I remember that trailer. I have to watch it again though. I want to see the magnificence of them doing that live in person again.
Yeah, it's not fake at all. It's so weird. You're like, oh, this is all CGI. And then if you watch the behind the scenes, they're actually they like when they pour it, they're like they have a camera really it's insane.
That's beautiful. That's dedication.
Yeah.
Jolie, what did you think?
Well, yeah, I was very excited about it. I mean, I had the fortunate opportunity to go to Comic-Con this year and made it into their panel in Hall H, and like that super hyped it up for me. Like, they actually brought the orchestra that played the music for the show, like the actual orchestra that recorded all the music. So that was really cool. They had like the entire cast there, and it's a very large cast. Like they had to do it in
Wow.
segments. There are so many people.
Yeah. So just seeing that, we got to see like some first look clips and all this stuff, and like, so I was already like pretty excited after that. But I mean, I was excited when they announced it, of course, too, because I've been a Lord of the Rings fan for a long time as well. I think mine started about in high school too. I don't know, my friends were kind of just like, a few of my friends had already read the books, and they're, you gotta come see these movies with us. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. I just fell in love. And so and then I did read like parts of the books. I mean, I'm one of those people who like had a little hard time getting through some of the Tolkien language, I guess. But I did attempt to read them on multiple attempts. I just don't think I ever finished. But but
it's a hard read. It's a hard read.
Yeah,
it's definitely one of those that you have to like focus to continue through.
Yes, and focus is not my strong point. So, but no, I mean, I studied into like the lore and everything, and my friends who had read them were able to fill me in on anything they might have missed, and like, so yeah. So I mean, I guess my expectations were kind of like, I wouldn't say they were high or low. They were kind of just somewhere in the middle, where I'm like, well, I don't want to get too hopeful, but from what I've seen so far, it looks good and all that stuff. So, yeah.
Good. And sorry, Erin, what are your thoughts about it? I was joking.
No, it's okay. Honestly, same thing. Of course, I feel like we've all had similar experiences, except for the part that I didn't grow up with Lord of the Rings in middle and high school. I got into it when COVID hit. So in 2020, that's when I was just watching everything, and I was binging everything. I binged South Park. I need to binge some other things.
Just like everybody, we watched so much TV during COVID.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Like the whole Marvel anthology. I did that for like weeks.
We felt like what's his character's name in Ant-Man? It's just like, so here's the entire story, blah 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 blah, and then that's like literally us like watching, of course, binging everything. But with Lord of the Rings, of course, I've seen it now countless of times. Always have to do the extended version. It's not right watching, of course, the cut down version. You always have to start with the extended. But of course, seeing the similarity. Well, we're going to talk more about it, but seeing the similarities between of course, Fellowship and the start of Rings of Power, it's there. You can see like, oh, we obviously know what's going to happen in Fellowship of the Ring, and following the main character, it's like, okay, now it's it's kind of intersecting kind of in between. So I can't wait for this series to fully go out. I know every single time at the end of Return of the King I cry. It's just
Mhm.
the music, and then it's just like, no, you don't have to bow down to no one. And then everybody freaking bows to four of them. And I'm like, ah, just feelings. Yeah. So I'm excited. I'm also keeping this interest at a middle ground. Of course, I don't want to be too high in expectations, too low in expectations. I like being in the middle because, of course, we've all learned from multiple series that we were getting invested in, and then it just kind of shattered us at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, or something that we
Whatever are
just
you
didn't know
talking
about.
about?
Hmm. Or something that we weren't really into, and then we were like, wow, this is amazing. So it can go either way. I'm just excited to see how it's going to play out.
Yes, I agree with you. I'm excited. Hopefully it goes the way I want it to,
Mm-hmm.
but you never know. So before we get into this as well, how do you guys feel about this being a prequel and there's not a book for this series, that they're just coming up with it from the lore that Tolkien created? How do you guys feel about that? We'll start with you on this one, Julie.
I mean, I think it's very interesting, and I think it's pretty cool because there's so much out there that's based on the books and based on like just not just Lord of the Rings, just other stuff too. It's always based on the book, so it's kind of cool to be able to like take a stab at it. Original, like with just having to be original material. I mean, with obviously the main source still being Tolkien material, but yeah, no, I think it's kind of cool because I think it gives it like a fresh take on things, and yeah, and the fact that like nobody knows any of this, that it's like the first time we're all experiencing this together, like it's kind of cool. Like nobody knows what's gonna happen in the prequel. I mean, we know what's gonna happen later, but we don't know all of what happened before. We might know some of it from bits and pieces, but I mean, as long as it doesn't go the Game of Thrones route, I think we're good.
Please,
Mhm.
no.
I know that like it depends on the writer, like
Sure.
some writers
Yeah.
are really good at coming up with original material, and some they go off of the source material and they're like, so yeah.
Let's throw this in here. Don't know where it came from. But no, I'm right there with you. What do you think, Julie, about the prequel and it coming from all the like lore material? Or Erin,
so-
Erin, sorry.
I was gonna say,
That's okay. I was
Okay.
like, I think Julie already
Talk
talked
again,
about
Julie.
it. Yeah.
Keep talking.
I was going to bring up I always have a hard time pronouncing it, but the Similarion.
Silmarillion.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I always have such a big issue like pronouncing it. It's just, one of those really hard Tolkien words. But I'm, of course, with you on struggling to read his type of writing. But piece by piece, I'm like, okay, I know it's going to be some parts of that book kind of hopefully we'll see if it's incorporated into the prequel, because I do see like a couple of names that I've seen before and I'm like, okay, now I know where this is going. So from here, of course, like you said, it's going to be just a brand new story. And so just seeing the main character just being a freaking boss at everything is just gonna be fun.
I'm so excited to go
Yeah.
on this journey in this.
Yeah.
Tony, what about you? What do you think about this prequel?
Sorry, I bit into a really spicy part of the taco, so I'm gonna be like. So I'm glad you brought up the Silmarillion, because that book is probably one of the hardest books. It's like trying to read old day English, right?
Yeah.
Like you're trying to read a book in a way where it's like nothing makes sense. And for those of you that haven't read it and that want to know what goes on in the book, there's a good 10-minute like YouTube video of it on YouTube if you ever just need to get like the lore of like what happened before, because J.R.R. like he made an entire world, right? Like based off of like these books. So please go and watch that, because they mention the Silmarils like within the Rings of Power, and that's really important to realize, because we're at an age where we're after the Silmarillion, like hundreds of years, thousands of years after, but we're also a little bit before The Hobbit. And so
Mhm.
you kind of see that like in sort of 1 and 2 when you meet Jordyn and you meet like all these people where you're like, hey, I've heard that name in The Hobbit, right? Like, so, but I feel like because in the books and then even in the Silmarillion, you don't hear about Galadriel at all. Like all you experience is like in the Lord of the Rings, where she's like, oh,
Here's
she's
the
this like,
star.
yeah, she's like she's this bad bitch and you don't want to mess with her. But like now we have a story. Like now we have this like and it could go south, right? Like it could go like Daenerys Game of Thrones season 7 season like it could go that way. But I'm liking what they're doing with it, but also too like with the other characters that they have, like, and we'll talk about it a little bit more. I'm liking everything. Like I'm liking everything that's going on in this entire, like, including the mythology, the lore, everything. It's connecting everything, right? Especially in the first episode where we're like introduced to all these characters. But I'm like, this is absolutely necessary for everything that plays out in the rest of the series. So.
Oh yeah, it's that especially. Let's jump into that first episode a little bit and start talking about the characters that we're going to start meeting. That first episode was chocked full with introductory. That's all that episode was.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit of past tense of this is where we come from. We're coming from here. Like Galadriel and Finrod come from Valinor, and you see the elves travel over to Middle Earth and everything like that, and hear about Morgoth, that he's more badass than Sauron was.
Yeah.
That shocked me because I didn't know that. But we get that whole big war with the elves and Morgoth and everybody like that, and then the elves are kind of just stuck there still looking for Sauron at this point. And that's where we see older Galadriel looking because her brother, spoiler alert, passed away. How do you think they brought that was when they were in the icy mountains and she's still looking for this evil, and then we get into Farid with, I think I'm saying that right. I don't know if I'm saying that right. To where we meet the elves and they're like, the evil's gone. What did you guys think about that whole first like 20 minutes and all that story? We'll start with you, Jordyn.
So I knew from jump, I was like, these bitches don't know. And Galadriel knows. She's like, I know this shit ain't gone. And I feel like that while she is naive and while she is young in this series, she already has that like bad bitch mentality where she's like, no, she's like, I don't believe this. She's like, something else is going on. And I think we see that too with her company where the elves are like, we'll follow you until we like get killed. And then we're like, nah, like we're going to go. And then she's like, shit, like I lost all of my company. Right. But I do feel like, you know, specifically with her character, this is building up to a greater understanding of who she is within the J.R.R. Tolkien mythology, right? Like she's this elf, right? And like we see this early on, like, and which we don't see, like we only hear about, right, in Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, where they go to the Undying Lands, right? Like they had this area and this land before, right? And we never see that. And we see that in this first episode, and it is beautiful. We get a taste of paradise in that. And then all of a sudden, it's taken away. And they're like, shit, like, what do we do, right? Like, we're on Middle Earth. We can't, right? Like, they can still live a long time, but then they're like, we can also die. And like, death is a reality for these elves. And so I feel like in this first episode, it was so well done in a way where I was like, I'm invested. Like, I want to know what's going on with her. I don't care if it goes shitty. I want to know what happens with her, how her character develops, what goes on after that, right? And then we see this sort of like friendship that happens with her and Elrond, right? Who is fine as hell and is also,
yes.
Also, if y'all didn't know, he was in Lord of the Rings and played the Stark that made Jon Snow. Just want to let you know.
You mean Game of Thrones?
Huh? Sorry, Game of Thrones. What did I say?
I think you said Lord of the Rings, but that's okay.
Oh wait,
okay.
I
Lord of the
Rings. Wow.
And
I know they're both coming up.
He he played the Stark that got Liliana pregnant and then made Jon Snow.
Yep.
So go look at his screen credits, because I was like, he looks so familiar. Looked him up and I was like, yes, I remember this.
I thought he
Okay.
was familiar too. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of
But
sense.
he's also just like, he's also cute and he's like young. He's like, I'm gonna do my thing. And I'm like, okay, like, yeah, do your thing.
Plus, for Elrond not to have his power yet that we've known him to have.
Right.
Because he's kind of like
he's not the High King.
No.
We have another High King. And you're like, and those of us that have seen, Lord of the Rings and our fans, like, we know what you become, but okay, I'm gonna let this play out. So,
well, I mean, if you notice, he writes the High King's speech when he's sending them away because he's mouthing it, which was beautiful.
Period.
I did want to touch base before I asked you other two about what you thought about this first 20 minutes coming from Volunteer and the battle and everything like that. I did love that beginning speech where she was like, "We didn't even have a word for this."
Yeah.
Just seeing it and just the build up, and now they have several words. I just found that so beautiful, and the writer for that was Peach. Erin, let's go with you. And what do you think about the moving to Middle Earth and the war and evil and them thinking?
Oh yeah, like the entire thing. Of course, it was definitely like kind of a recap moment, and I was like, whoa, okay, this is a lot of information being flooded into me. It's one of those things that I need to watch again in order to, of course, get all the information down. But I always think about Elrond and the introduction that we have to him. He's just, writing a speech and in this beautiful place, and then two elves come up and it's just like, oh my gosh, we've been looking for you everywhere. And he's like, oh, it's like if I never wanted to be seen. What's up? Yeah. And it's so great. It's just everything. I really like his character. And I know that I can latch onto his character because he does not die. So, it's just one of those, like, it's just some characters, obviously, of course, Game of Thrones and from the past, other things that we've liked so far. It's always hard liking a character and then they die. The next episode, you're like, you know what? That's cool. It's whatever. But yeah. But of course, we can safely say I like this character. I like how, of course, he's portrayed in this series. I like how Galadriel is portrayed in this series. I'm like, the entire time I'm thinking, man, she can step on me and I would thank her. They can both step on me and I would both thank them at the same time. It's like,
absolutely.
Thank you.
Agreed. Absolutely. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah.
Julie, what were your expectations, or what were your thoughts about this first little bit?
Well, first of all, I have to say the casting of the actress that plays Galadriel. I mean, she's like spot on, Cate Blanchett. I'm like,
yeah.
What?
Her
like,
name
where did
too,
they find this girl? She's like
Morfydd
perfect.
Clark or Morfydd Clark or whatever. She has a beautiful name.
Yeah.
Oh,
And then I immediately like fell in love with her character all over. She's actually was I would say probably my favorite character in the originals. I even had an email address, y'all, that was the Elven Queen at hotmail.com.
Hell yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
mail.
before I, got professional and got a Gmail or whatever. But I still use that one, and I have to explain it sometimes because some people don't get the reference.
Don't
and I'm
worry,
like,
we all have those emails that we have to explain.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I was really excited to just see more of her like backstory and see her being badass. And like, can we talk about the fact that, okay, so when they're fighting the snow troll or whatever,
Yeah.
and like she basically like single-handedly defeats
Right.
this guy, and
Yeah.
her company's like, nah. I was like, if I was her company, I would see that and be like, wow, that's the leader I want to follow. Because
Let's
she
go
just
further north.
single-handedly
Yeah.
Right.
got rid of
Go
this
home.
And instead they're like, nah.
that was my moment where I was just like, really? That's what y'all think of her, like just defeating this thing by herself? Come on now.
I thought the same exact thing. I was just like, she literally made all of you guys look like
Stupid.
like stupid, like look like ants. And then it's just like she goes in and just quack, quack, quack. And then they're like, we're not going to follow you anymore. We want to go home. And it's just like,
What?
okay.
What did you just watch? What I just watched?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, right there with you. She's badass. But then we go from there, meeting the elves and everything like that. Them going back and being told, you are going to step down and go back to the motherland where we came from so you can live in peace. And we go from there and we get our first look at the Harfoot, which were ancestors of the hobbits before they got to the Shire. Now, there's been a little bit of controversy around the Harfoots thus far from the public and everything. And I know we want to touch base on this. Diversity. A lot of people are coming up with diversity with Amazon comments and Rotten Tomatoes, and they're not liking it. Jordyn, we'll start with you on this one. You had a little bit of insight earlier.
You mean I had a lot to say? Is what you meant to say. I mean, for me, there wasn't. Seeing a person of color on screen play a fictional character is not a thing for me anymore, right? Like even growing up, you would always see the same sort of typecast character, right? And let's be honest, it was mostly like white people playing these roles, right? Like live action roles. And I mean, like even you, Eric, like we just talked about Cinderella, right? Like what we did, where it was like shit, like it was a live action, Black, Asian, white, like we had all this like playing out, right? And for us, that was a moment, right? So when this came out, I wasn't even thinking about race. I wasn't even thinking about who would play who, right? So to see like some Harfoots being played by Black actors, I was like, absolutely cool, you're believable. Your race has nothing to do with the fact, right? You're playing a fictional race that's probably looked down upon, right? Like in the world that you're like, I'm not even looking at your skin color, right? Same thing with the elves, right? Same thing with all these other characters that are being played. And so for me, I was like, that has nothing to do with like the acting or the quality of like what you're doing, right? Like in this first episode and even in the second episode where we get introduced to a Black elf who is so hot, who's
Beautiful.
Also like beautiful.
Thank you.
And
Beautiful.
right. And
I
you're
think
like
Arondir might be my crush right now.
Period. And like besides Elrond, who I'm like, you're like Mexican,
cool
like
too,
you're
but-
Mexican, like you're half Mexican. I love you. Like this, just seeing it was beautiful. And if I had to focus on it, the fact that they had people of color playing these characters, I think added more instead of diminishing what this entire series was supposed to mean. So when people say, oh, the diversity of the cast, it's just, I don't understand where that's coming from. And the only route that I can think of is like racism, right? Like it's just racist to think about people of color not playing these characters because you have in your mind that they're all supposed to be white. Like that doesn't make sense. And so for me, I think it added rather than diminished the series.
I completely agree. Jolie, Erin, what did you guys think? Either one of you.
Yeah, well, so
Go, Jolie, go.
I mean, I pretty much agree with what Jordyn said. I mean, I said this before when we were talking. I will never understand someone's aversion to casting any ethnicity in a fictional character. Like it's fictional. It's literally not based on a real person. So why should that have any bearing on, what race gets to play who or what? I'm like, because we've seen that in others. We've seen that in the Little Mermaid, the new Little Mermaid too.
Okay.
Where I was like, okay, yeah, she comes from Norway. Again, fictional character. She's literally a half fish person. Like who's, but that's what I'm talking about. Like these characters don't exist in the real world. So I don't see why they couldn't be literally whatever ethnicity. Here's the thing. Do they act the part well? Do they fit the character? Then cast them by all means. Yeah. That's how it should always be. Like, I just don't understand. Like, people get so butthurt about the smallest thing, and like Jordyn was saying, like, I don't know where that could come from except racism either. Like, I don't, because what, like, you, and also, oh, can we also talk about the fact that Harfoots like were mentioned, like, I guess in the, was it the simmer or some, I can't say it. Simmer.
The
Anyway, and then in
Salmalarian.
some other things, but they weren't really
Similarian.
Similarian. Okay, my gosh, I'm gonna learn how to say that before the end of this thing. Maybe,
Yeah, right?
maybe not. But like, other, you know, from what I understand, because they even talked about this at the panel I went to at Comic-Con, like, they haven't really been delved into. So who knows what they looked like, or even, you know, they might know a little bits and pieces, but nobody really knows. So it's very open. I think the whole fantasy realm is very open, in my opinion, for, you know, anybody to play anything. Like,
Oh yeah, the whole world is open to anything. So that it is kind of shocking to me. Erin, go ahead, and what are your thoughts on this?
You know, of course, my thoughts are similar to everybody's. It's just like, how can you be so upfront about this but be okay with Mickey Rooney and Breakfast at Tiffany's? You know, it's just one of those things that it's just like, if
that's
they,
not what we started talking about. This
Which is a horrible movie. I hate that movie so much.
Mhm. It's just, you know, there's a lot of different things that it's just kind of like, it's just, it doesn't make sense. And you see how like speechless I am. I'm just like, really? But it's just, everybody plays it so well, including the I keep freaking, you know, of course I need to rewatch it again for the names, but the dwarf, the wife.
Oh,
Disa, the girl who plays Disa.
yeah.
But I
Yeah,
can't remember her
thank
name
you.
either.
Thank you.
Beautiful. I love
Oh,
her.
beautiful,
Her
great.
name is Sophia Nomvet.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, she is, you know, amazing in that role. I really like how they portrayed, you know, of course, like the whole clash between elves and man, and you know, of course, it all starts from there. You're like, okay, I can feel like the tension between everything here, and they all portrayed it very well.
Oh, yeah.
But you know, of course, this whole thing is just like, and you keep mentioning like J.R.R. Tolkien. It's just like, oh, he's gonna roll in his grave, and it's just like, are you
No.
sure? Like,
Right?
like, do
Yeah.
you know him
He don't care.
personally? Yeah, he wrote, you know,
Yeah, I
of
don't
course,
think that's what it's really about.
yeah, dark skin hobbits, and it's just kind of like, well, yes, they are black. That's just say it. Yeah.
Oh no,
Yeah.
I completely agree with all of you. Like, it's just ridiculous at this point. Why not? Why can't there be a dark elf? Hobbit. Why can't there
Elf,
be
Hobbit, Harfoot, any
Yeah.
of them.
Any of them. Yeah.
But we go from meeting the hobbits, we meet Nori and Poppy. Those are to be our two main hobbits. They're rambunctious, like we've seen from hobbits before. And then we go from there, and we are introduced to the dwarfs, and we go to Khazad-dûm, which is pretty much Moria. It says
Yeah.
so. It was very interesting for me to see Moria alive with the green people.
It was so pretty.
It was so pretty just to see that this time taken back. What were your thoughts about that, and seeing the interactions between how the elves were still kind of friendly towards, or the dwarves were still kind of friendly towards the elves a little bit, and they still had the successful society. What were your thoughts on that? We'll start with you, Erin.
I will say, when I was, of course, seeing Khazad-dûm in all of its glory, really quickly, I just saw like a Minecraft video of someone actually building Khazad-dûm, like inside a mountain, and then that sort of like flashed in my mind. I'm like, whoa, like this is actually like really crazy. Like the first time I saw Khazad-dûm was actually like on the Minecraft build, but seeing it here, I literally, like, my mouth was like as it was going through, seeing it alive and, you know, being populated with all these dwarves. I do like the test of endurance as well. It's just kind of like, it's just such a man thing. Like, oh, you didn't come to my wedding. You didn't, but it's understandable. I would do the same thing too. It's
I am
just like, you haven't met my
offended. You haven't
children.
talked to me.
Yeah, how dare you? I'm banning you. But it's so funny when Elrond gets introduced, to the wife, and I wish there were more introduction with the kids, but maybe that's going to be a little bit later. But mostly between the wife and him, it's like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen you in such a long time. How are you, old friend? And it's just like, wow, that could have been the man of the house, but it chose not to be. But I really like that moment. And obviously at the end of the episode, I want to see what was the glowing offer. What was it?
Mm-hmm.
I know what it is, but
I
I'm
know
not
what it
telling
is
you.
too. I can't remember the name. But we'll hold off on that because I'm pretty sure we will get on to that later in the season.
I know what it is. I know
We'll
what it
just
is.
calm down for this moment. Secrets. We have
I
secrets.
mean, we already know what it is. Like, we've seen it in Lord of the Rings, so it's
Yeah.
not like a spoiler, but
yeah, but it's
yeah, it's a spoiler now.
It's a spoiler for the moment.
Wait, okay, now I think I might know what it is now. I had to think about that.
I'll private message you right now.
Yes.
Anyway, continue.
All right, Julie, what did you think about Casa Doom?
Yeah, I thought, first of all, just all of the scenery and settings in this is amazing. And okay. Anyway.
Yeah, okay, continue.
But no, like the artistry that went into creating that, and especially the details that went into Casa Doom specifically, like just all the intricate little, like when you see the whole world just rising up before you, and like everybody is in it doing their little part, and it's alive, and it's like, yeah, it's really cool, really beautiful. And like Erin was saying, like just seeing what it looked like before we knew it too, like before, like, well, I mean, yeah, like the greenery and stuff. And I love the dwarfs. I've always loved like the kind of dwarf elf rivalry. Like Legolas and Gimli was like kind of my favorite. So I think this is going to be the new like Legolas and Gimli like rivalry, maybe a little bit. Where like they're obviously friends, but they they poke fun at each other.
The banter between them.
Yeah, exactly. No, but shout out to Disa and the actress who plays her too, like you were saying before. I love her. I think she's one of my new favorite characters, honestly. Like she just was like, I don't know, just really fit, like embodied the dwarf thing perfectly. And also just the typical like the man, like you were saying, the men are quarreling, but the woman's gonna be the one to like welcome them in with open arms.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. She's like, what are you talking about? Let's let our dear friend in here, like come sit down for dinner, like,
yeah.
I just love that. I love her personality, and like literally fits right in with the dwarf world. And it was really cool to like see that again, but with new characters. So yeah.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. Before we get to you, Jordyn, Q in the chat says we're going back to when we were talking about diversity and everything. As I myself am half Irish and Choctaw Indian, pass as white, and I agree that a writer's purpose is to write characters are identifiable to the reader or the movie watcher. A production company's vision of all white casts to play these characters is bullshit. I'm glad they addressed that, and casting is so diverse, which we all completely agree with on that one.
Yeah.
So Jordyn, what were your thoughts about collecting Mignon?
Oh my god. So yes, the dwarves and all of them. I was so excited to see sort of what we've been alluded to in like the Lord of the Rings and in the Hobbit, right? Because in the Hobbit you have Thorin, who actually is a son of Durin, right? And so when we got introduced to his character, I was freaking out. My dad was like, "Who is that? What's going on?" And I was like, "Have you seen the Hobbit?" He's like, "No." And I was like, "It would take too long to explain. I don't have time." Right?
Yeah.
Like, and we will be seeing the Balrog in this season. So just be aware, like we will be seeing it because it's alluded to in a lot of the trailers, right? Which we see Gandalf fight in the Lord of the Rings. So we will be seeing the Balrog because the dwarves got too greedy, they dug deep, right? And it's alluding to the little gift that, like the little that was opened. I'm not going to say what it is, but me and Julie know. But I will say, like, and I kind of am going to go to what Erin was saying with, like, oh my God, like, it's like, masculine, all that stuff. I kind of felt like it was a vulnerable moment for like Jordyn to be like, you didn't come to this and you didn't come to that. And like, you say you're my friend and like, you're going to just do your own thing. And then that's why we see Elrond like get teary eyed. He's like, you know what? You're right. Like, I did it. And like, you're right. I was focused on me. Like, I should have been here for you, even though these fucking lands are like thousands of miles away, right? Like, let's keep this in reality, right? This is like, this isn't like, oh, I'm gonna go from like LA to like, to the Valley. This is like, I'm gonna go to LA to New York, right? Like,
Yeah.
this is how far this fucking shit is. And he was like, you know what? You're right. He was like, I'm sorry. Like, I didn't mean to offend. And then Durin's like, all right, like, you can come into my house, like, you can see my kids. And the fact that like when he met his kids had the fucking heads on, and they were like, but I died. I laughed so hard
Yeah.
because I was like, one of them is Thorin. And
Yeah.
I'm like, this is amazing. And then his wife was awesome. So I thought it was just, and then at the very end when he said, oh, you kept the sapling and it like thrived. And he's like, yeah, he takes care of it like it's his third child. And like that sort of let Elrond know that like, all right, this guy's not as like hard ass as he thinks he is, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like all for show. So I enjoyed it. I thought that the dwarves' home was beautiful. It was amazing. And it was just it was an ode to like the dwarf elf relationship that we've seen in The Hobbit and as well as in Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah. I completely agree with you. We're gonna go and talk about Elrond right now and why he went to go visit the dwarves. Celebrant Charles Edwards wants him to help him build this tower. Now, what do you guys think about that? Because this is the first that we're hearing about them wanting to build this thing to create something beautiful and something powerful that they haven't done in Middle Earth. What do you guys think it may be? Where do you think it's going to go? How evil or good do you think it may be? We'll start with you on this, Julie.
I don't know. Like, I mean, I'm excited to see what it becomes. And as far as thoughts on it, like, I feel like I want it to be something that like we recognize from the previous movies and stuff, but I don't know. It could be. I want to say, just because I'm an optimist, I want to say that it's going to be a good thing, because I can't imagine something that the elves and the dwarves creating together would be bad. But that's just me. But yeah, other than that, I don't know. Like, I'm just very curious to see how that unfolds. Yeah.
Completely right. There's going to be an interesting journey as we go on it. Erin, what are your thoughts about this tower could be, what it could bring, what it can do?
I will say the opposite. I think, honestly, because there's something that I feel like, like they're gonna build it. It's what they wanted to like intend it for, but there's going to be something else that will take over. It. So
I can see that.
Yeah, so that's why I'm like, like that's why I'm just a little bit expecting the unexpected.
A little apprehensive in its purposes.
Yeah, exactly. But coming over and asking, hey, I know we can have more hands on this, even though it must be done by spring, we can still do it. And just, of course, it was kind of funny when Elrond went to go visit, and it's just like, I'm expecting this, and then it's just like, nope. It's like, okay.
Yep.
Yeah. But that's what I currently think of it so far. Yeah.
All right.
Well,
no, go ahead, Joel.
Sorry, I was gonna say, just touching on that point of like thinking that something's gonna happen with it. Like, I just feel like this whole series is gonna have like this overshadowing of darkness, like it's foreshadowing some things, dark things to come. So I see why you went there with that, because Anyway.
Jordyn, what do you think about the tower?
Oh, I'm about to ruin it for all of you. If you're so I'm a huge gamer. And if you've ever played Shadow of Mordor or Shadow of War, you know exactly what that tower is. And you know exactly what happens with that. And you know exactly what the hammer is. Like, you know exactly why it was introduced. All I'm gonna say is that there's some foreboding with that, like Calib- Calibor.
Celebrimbor.
Yeah,
Celebrimbor.
Celebrimbor.
Thank
He
you.
has a lot of fancy goals of like what he wants to do with that tower, and I just can't wait to see what this series has in hold of that, because playing Shadow of Mordor, I was like, and then hearing that, I was like, oh, this isn't good. Don't do it. Don't do it. Please don't do it. Like, please don't do that. Yeah. So we're gonna have I feel like it was also an arc for setting up multiple series or multiple seasons of this series, which I'm really excited for, right? Because we might get a Shadow of Mordor series where I will cream my pants the entire series because it's a video game and like I'm so excited for it. We might get a Shadow of War series. Like it just, so when he said that, I was like, oh my God. Okay, I'm not going to get too excited because things get canceled, but also I'm really excited because what if it doesn't? And this is going to be really good. So
yes, things do get canceled, but it's Amazon, so he's paying for it himself. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Right.
Last place we're going to touch on before we recap and see where everybody ends. In the lands of man, we actually meet Errinder and Barrowin, the human and the elf, the beautiful chocolate man elf. I love him.
Yes.
Their little love. But no, we meet them and their little like maybe love interest, probably love interest. I mean, who are we lying? But we see our first instance of wow, the name just went from my head. With everybody burrowing under the other town and the sun and everything like that. Like we see our first instance of Jordyn. Help me out here.
Arendir?
No. Sauron's minions to fight for him. I don't know why. Orc. Thank you. I don't know why that came out of my head. I was like, but we see our first instance of orcs. Like, and we've been looking for them for the first couple of episodes. So what do you think this is going to be? Is this going to start a big war? Are people going to start migrating to try and save themselves? What do you think is going to happen? We'll start with you on this, Erin.
I anybody else could start, but I just wanted to also mention like the sword as well.
Yeah.
Theo.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really interesting, and I can't wait to see how it's going to affect that character in particular. Honestly, we are going to see the elf, of course, come back as well. But yeah, like once the orc came up, I knew. I was just like, yep, that's an orc right there. And there's also something that crossed my mind, which was I think we already talked about it, but the stranger, the man in the side story.
Star.
Yeah. There's just a lot of things that's just like questionable, and we're just like, what's going on? I don't know what's going on. So right now,
we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, but if anybody else wants to go, they can. But that's just what I wanted to bring up so far.
Okay.
Yeah.
Julie will touch base on you on the orcs, and also now she brought up Erin because we need to talk about that. The man who fell from the sky and the star. What are your thoughts on these?
Okay, so yeah, the orcs, I mean, I was kind of like, they're gonna show up at some point because, like, again, they kept foreshadowing it, hinting at it, and we know the minute that the elves were like, they're gone, nobody's seen an orc in years, that's always a surefire sign, like, they're gonna pop up. So yeah, I was kind of waiting, and I like, at first I wasn't 100% sure, like when he was in like the floorboards and stuff, what it was, but yeah, like Erin said, when he came up, or whatever, I don't know what gender the orc was, but the orc came up. What's that?
When the orc came up.
When the orc came up.
Non-gender specific.
Yes, yeah. Whatever. But yeah, when the orc came up, I was just like, oh shoot, like that's it, it's happening. Like, you know, Galadriel's right, but I knew she was right because she's my girl. So, you know, but yeah, but yeah, it's very exciting because it just definitely like it's gonna throw everything into a whole different level of, you know, like the next level of the story. Like it's like, but the humans are gonna have to change everything they know about their way of life, and like how are they gonna survive? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're migrating right now, but like, are the orcs gonna follow them? My guess is probably. So yeah, it's just very interesting to see how this is all going to unfold. And I'm wondering if they're going to not want the elves to be on their side to help fight against the orcs. Because I'm like, come on now, duh. Like the elves are like really good fighters. Like, I mean, I guess I kind of get like what, because you know the humans obviously do not like the elves very much, but like I'm still a little unclear as to why. Like, I mean, I guess because that rivalry goes even into the movies. Because I know, like, for instance, I think Legolas and Aragorn were like untrusting of each other at first, weren't they? If I remember correctly. So I don't know. That's a whole rivalry that apparently goes back a lot. I know they kind of went into it, but anyway, sorry, this is going on a tangent. But my point is, yeah. My point is that, like, I think they're going to maybe have to form an alliance with the elves to fight these orcs because they're not going to be able to do it by themselves. So we shall see. And then, you the man in the sky. You want to say something about that? Okay, the man in the stars that fell from the sky. Yeah, I mean, okay, like, we talked about this a little bit before we started, but I know some of us think it's Gandalf and some of us think that it's I think it has to be, but I mean, I think Jordyn, you brought up a good point that it could be, what did you say, the necromancer or something? Or
I did
say. You brought that up, yeah.
I have some people who think it might be the necromancer that we saw in the Hobbit series.
Well, and I was mentioning, like, when I went to the panel for the show, like, they were very strongly hinting that it's probably Gandalf. So I'm like, I think so. And I mean, like, come on, that's obviously the thing that fans most want to see is like Gandalf's origins. Mm-hmm. And if that's the case, I'd be particularly excited about that because, yeah, how did he become Gandalf the Grey, Gandalf the White, and all that? You know, like, I want to see. But he's very, very interesting. This version of him. If this is him, like, it's very interesting, like, just his different powers and his different figuring out what everything is. It's very interesting to watch.
Oh yeah, no, completely right there with you. And then Jordyn, will touch base on you before we start wrapping things up here in a second.
Yeah, I for sure think that the man that fell is Gandalf, only because and I'm glad Erin brought it up, the sword that was taken from the town, which the elf told the woman that he like loves, he's like, yeah, your town is known for like loving Morgoth. Like, what's going on? And she's like, how dare you? And I'm like, bitch, like, you got to realize your history. Like, you got to know what's going on. And the fact that your son found a freaking found a sword that belonged to a wraith, right? Eventually becomes a wraith, right? I feel like Theo will become a wraith eventually. He might be the necromancer because here's the thing. And when the old man that fell from the sky fell, and then we see, you know, the ancestors of the hobbits take care of him, we also see in another like scene, which is right after, mention of the Silmarils, which Gandalf is sort of like a child of the gods, right? Like, he's a child of the Silmarils. So I'm like, this is Gandalf pre, like, him knowing what's going on. He still has his power, right? Like, he's a powerful wizard who can control natural elements and can control shit, right? But he doesn't have the capability to communicate at this time, right? And what gave it away for me was when he was talking to the fireflies to do certain things, And then they all died when he passed out. And I was like, remember when he talks to the moth when he's on the tower of oh shit, I forgot his name. The other white wizard that's like, yeah,
Saruman, yeah.
remember that shit? Yeah. And then how he can communicate with eagles. I'm like, you know what? You ain't fooling me. This is Gandalf. Period. And if it's not, like, I'll be very surprised. I will be very surprised and conceited those people. But I feel like this is why we see Gandalf say that hobbits are the most trusting and the most loving of creatures on this, in this fictional world. So
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see where it goes. Before I get your final thoughts on where you hope the season will go, everybody, where we're ending off is Galadriel is making her way back to Middle Earth after jumping off the ship, as she meets her little friend, and they're getting attacked by fish and everything. And she still has the inclination that evil is going to happen. Nori and Poppy are taking care of who we presume is Gandalf, but also telling him that they're about to make this journey and they're gonna go on to other places, so they may have to leave him. They're building the tower, which I'm presuming is going to make the rings, which yes, but no, and we don't know what that is. And then we're also in the realm of the dwarves, where they finally come back in contact with the elves and everything like that, and they're kind of still in their power. Where do you guys think the season is going to go? What are your hopes for the season? What do you hope to see in this next episode? We'll start with you, Jordyn.
I'm really excited for this series. I'm really excited to see sort of the things that I've been missing, before, like the things that we've only heard of in Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, to sort of fill those gaps. I'm excited to see, some of the games that I played to sort of like connect with those and sort of like realize, and I think you kind of like made a little hint where it's like, oh, is this the tower that they made the rings? Maybe, we don't know. But I think if you've played the games, if you've seen all of the movies, you kind of know the answer to that. If you've read the books, you kind of know the lore. So I'm super hopeful for this, and I cannot wait for each episode to come out.
Erin, what are your hopes for the season and
cliffhanger? That's all I'm gonna like. Just cliffhanger. I know it's going to probably maybe end when the tower is completed, or something along the lines of that, where it's just like in the next episode of Dragon Ball Z. It's just like no, yeah. And that's what you missed on Dragon Ball Z. And literally,
and then like the hammer's charging just the whole time.
The hammer's charging. Galadriel's just like, yeah, exactly. But I'm excited for how everything is just going to, go. I'm just gonna watch and just let it take me. Just let me on this ride, and I won't, of course, say anything about it until the very end. Yeah.
It's going to be a beautiful, beautiful ride. And what about you, Julie? What do you think?
I mean, yeah, my hopes, I guess, are just that I hope that the stories are able to get fleshed out in a way that leaves us feeling satisfied, but also, I don't, of course, they're gonna have cliffhangers because that's just how most TV shows are nowadays. But yeah, I just want to see more. I want to see more good writing. I want to see more stories fleshed out. I really want to see more connections to the movies and things, like just see how that all pans out. Like, oh, I know her because this, and I know, and I'm going to put two and two together and figure out that this person is, that's honestly really fun for me. So I hope there's more of that. And yeah, I just hope it continues to, keep to like be very true to the world while coming up with this awesome original source material, So.
Oh yeah, I completely agree with all you. I'm excited to see where this journey takes us, because we haven't seen anything like this before that wasn't written by Tolkien. So it's exciting to see what the writers and the directors and everything are going to do. But unfortunately, that's all the time we have for tonight, everybody. And today we talked about episodes 1 and 2 of The Rings of Power. Shout outs to my guests, Jordyn, Erin, and Julie. Go ahead and tell them, everybody out there, where they can find you. Julie, you go ahead and start.
Yeah, well, I'm on Instagram at Raelyn, and then I'm on Twitter at Silent Caffeine, but I use my Instagram a lot more. So, yeah, that's my main socials.
Perfect. Jordyn, tell everybody out there where they can find you today.
I'm on Instagram, City of Stars 13. Follow Julie. You're right. Wait, you're right here. Follow Julie. I just saw her Instagram. Please do. If you're into nerdgasms, geekgasms, all that shit, follow her. Erin, I'm excited to follow you too if you have anything. But yes, I always look up the people, so please follow all these wonderful individuals. Eric
I'll
too.
call you back.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, City of Stars 13 on Instagram.
Good. And Erin, where can people out there find you?
If you can see my name right over here on the edge of the screen, that's my Twitter handle. Makes it really, really easy. It's just my first name and then LEW and my last name. And then I also have a Instagram as well, which is Aerith, like in Final Fantasy, Aerith, and then Doe, DOE at the end.
We love that.
Yeah.
I do love that. I think that is pretty.
Thank you.
Well, you can listen to the show on Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch. All of our platforms are at Nom Talk Network. Until then, I am your host, Erric Ramirez. Our next Basic Binges is going to be episodes 7, 8, and 9 of Sandman. We're finishing that off. So that's very exciting. But thank you all for joining, and have a nomorific day.
Bye-bye.